Hi, everyone. Ooh, step back. So, a big thank you to the school orchestra's Iron Strings Quartet from the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering. We had Natalie Kwong on violin, Derek Ma on violin, Jenny Moore on viola, and John Takasaki on cello. Yes. My name is David Kim, and I use he, him pronouns. I am an Asian male with short, dark hair. I am wearing a light-colored shirt and a dark gray blazer. I currently serve as warden at Hart House, and I will be one of the event's co-hosts today. Today's event holds a lot of meaning for me as an individual. We were just having a really nice conversation here, and just so sharing some of our experience, perspectives, hopes. And so as an individual that has experienced loss due to violence, and as a person that comes from a family of 6 children that includes 4 sisters, and now as a father to 2 daughters, it holds a lot of significance. And as former chair of the Positive Space Committee on the St. George campus, I often consider the importance that allyship plays in these conversations.
Hi everyone, my name is Shanna Alexander and I use she, her pronouns. I'm a white female with long blonde hair and I'm wearing a black shirt and a black blazer, some silver earrings, and my engineering ring. I'm a 4th-year PhD candidate in the Department of Biomedical Engineering, and I'm also the president of the Graduate Society of Women Engineers, a student club at the University of Toronto. Today's event holds deep significance to me as a woman fortunate enough to have completed my undergraduate degree in engineering. I'm grateful for Hart House and Marisa Sterling for selecting me to MC this year's event. It is truly my honor to pay tribute to those we've lost.
Thank you, Shanna. We are grateful that you are all here. Thank you for joining us today at Hart House and virtually via live stream to mark the National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women.
Please note this event is closed captioned. For those joining us via live stream, you can turn on closed captions by clicking the CC button on the bottom right of your video player. For those in person, you can use the QR code displayed on the slide and on the agenda at your table if you're having trouble reading the closed captions provided on the screens. As we come together for today's event, we also kindly ask you to not take photos or videos of the event or any of its participants, including speakers, without their direct consent. Today's event has been co-organized with the Sexual Violence Prevention and Support Center, Hart House, and the Faculty of Applied Science and Engineering. In addition to staff from all 3 of those teams, we're also grateful for the support from our colleagues who are volunteering their time today helping with registration, guiding our discussions as facilitators, and more. We'd like to specifically thank Jenny Blackbird and student firekeepers Grace David and Gabby Snake and Bailey Bornick, who will be tending to the fire taking place at Zeebing just outside Hart House front doors in Hart House Circle from 1 to 2:30 p.m. For those who need a moment of reprieve, we encourage you to visit Zeebing at any time during the memorial, and we'll also be stopping at it for a part of our memorial walk. Let's hear it for all the folks who've made today's event possible.
Firstly, we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. I want to take a moment to reflect and acknowledge the ongoing and violent impacts of settler colonialism contributing to gender-based violence and affecting Indigenous women, girls, Two-Spirit, and gender-diverse people specifically. Today, advocacy and dialogue around missing and murdered Indigenous women and Two-Spirit girls remains essential in seeking justice for those impacted and their families, and especially as we continue to witness disproportionate rates of violence and injustice taking place. We all have a responsibility to actualize justice for the thousands of missing and murdered Indigenous women, girls, two-spirited, trans, and non-binary folks from across Turtle Island. We encourage everyone here today to actively assert your solidarity through action moving forward from this event. By showing up at the February 14th Strawberry Ceremony taking place in Toronto, participating in and learning about Red Dress Day on May 5th, educating yourself and your loved ones by reading and sharing Reclaiming Power and Place, the final report of the National Inquiry, and listening to and supporting families directly in seeking justice. Resources and further reading on these actions can be found on your self-guided walking brochure and additionally via the QR code, which can be found at your table. Now please take a moment to reflect.
Thank you, David. It's been 35 years since the murder of 14 women at École Polytechnique de Montreal. As we mourn their loss and remember their lives, we recognize that the misogyny and hatred that led to the women's murders still exists today. In Canada, the United States, and around the world, women, girls, and 2S LGBTQ folk face unacceptable violence and discrimination. The National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women is about remembering those who've experienced gender-based violence and reaffirming our commitment to taking action. We recognize that the topics we're discussing today are complex, important, and sometimes very painful. With that in mind, we'd like to remind everyone if you're feeling activated or overwhelmed during today's event, the university has support services available through the Sexual Violence Prevention and Support Center. You can find Henna and Jane from the SVPS Center at the table by the coat rack just outside the Great Hall if you want to chat further. If you're joining us via live stream or would like to access support after the event, please contact the Sexual Violence Prevention and Support Center at svpscenter@utoronto.ca. Further information about the kind of support the center can provide is available on their website, svpcenter.utoronto.ca. Talking about gender-based violence can be difficult for many of us, both as a supportive activity for those interested and as a collaborative memorial piece. We have a Get Crafty activity taking place just outside the hall near the registration table. This activity is an activity guiding watercolor painted roses, which will be compiled and displayed at the Hart House following this memorial. This activity is available until 2:30 p.m., so please feel free to take breaks as needed to participate in this activity at your own pace. Today's event will begin with a performance by Jenny Blackbird. We'll then have the presentations of the awards for scholarly achievement in the area of gender-based violence. The award presentation will be followed by the memorial to remember the 14 women murdered at École Polytechnique, and a guided memorial walk and laying of the roses that begins at the Sacred Fire being tended at Zebang will continue to 35 St. George Street, in front of the Galbraith Building and the Engineering Student Build Memorial. A note that this fire and Zebang is an available space for all taking part in this event from now until 2:30 p.m.
Thank you, Shauna. It is a pleasure to introduce Jenny Blackbird. Jenny Blackbird is a Nehio Finnish-Canadian multidisciplinary artist, hand drummer, and community auntie. She works at First Nations Indigenous Student Services as the Resource Center and Programs Coordinator. Jenny is also a recipient of a University of Toronto 2019 IDIRD Award and producer and co-host of Indigenous Waves radio show, which takes place on Mondays from 7 to 8 p.m. on CIUT 89.5 FM. Jenny will be sharing a song and drum performance with us. Thank you and welcome, Jenny.
You don't mind if I share a little bit of sweetgrass with everybody, because sweetgrass is a very good medicine. It represents kindness. And we will have sweetgrass at the Zeebing fire as well. But I just like to light the sweetgrass. To cleanse my drum as well. All right, so I did prepare a little bit of something to say because I was thinking about a lot of the things we actually talked about at the table. Which, thank you for that opportunity to hear everybody and to also share how we feel about what this means. So December 6, 1989, I was 19 years old, and I remember my mother and I stopped what we were doing to watch the news. We learned that the 14 young women at École Polytechnique in Montreal were murdered by a lone gunman. And the Montreal massacre, that's what I knew it as. So the reporter stated that the killer said, "I hate feminists," as he killed these 14 women and injured several others. So over the course of a few days, we heard the reporter speak the names of the women whose lives had been taken so violently, the reality sunk in about how some women were so hateful, some men were so hateful. Actually, women can be hateful too. Maybe that wasn't a Freudian slip. Some people can be very violent and perpetuate misogyny. My mother is a feminist. I was brought up to be a feminist. So my mother was born in post-World War II Finland and then brought to Canada in the 50s. She told me stories of how men treated her as a child and as a young woman. I wondered why men would do that. I often perused the many books on feminism that we had on the bookshelves in our home and talked to her about the issues that women face. I was taught to not take gender discrimination to stand up for myself and for other women. Feminism to me has always been about all-around equality. Feminism is about being given space to be yourself, to be given the same opportunities as anyone else, and not to be held back or silenced just for being a woman. So, sadly, I had my own experiences being a young Indigenous girl, then a young woman, being followed, propositioned, being assaulted, being belittled for being female, and not heard when I spoke up against what was happening to me and my friends. And my late Aunt Hazel, she had a metal plate in her head due to injuries from domestic assault from her partner. So this beautiful woman who was a residential school survivor had this metal plate and her face was deformed. So that was a direct result of violence against a woman, an Indigenous woman. So after this Montreal massacre, I attended OCA, Ontario College of Art, as it was called at the time, and I was enrolled in performance art. And the final project, one of the female students presented a very simple yet powerful piece focused on naming the 14 women who died at Polytechnique, Montreal. So watching my classmates set down those 14 candles and then light them, and then hearing her speak those names in the performance piece was a chilling reminder that someone hated feminist women so much he killed them. So while many situations and opportunities have improved for women, I'm greatly disappointed that some things have remained the same. Some men just don't care. They don't care about women. They insult us when we don't reply to their catcalls. They show us rage when we don't want to date them. They abuse us when they don't get their way, and they go to extremes when they realize they can't control, and I'm using air quotes, they can't control women. As an Indigenous woman, I witness my Indigenous community member, friends, and acquaintances being subject to sexual harassment, threats, stalking, sexual violence, and even death threats by men who don't know where to direct their anger and their frustration. And sadly, some people just brush off these threats, and the women who have violence directed at them are labeled, and I'm using air quotes again, crazy. Ableist language too. So these very real threats are downplayed when a woman shows emotion about the situation she is facing. Some people just still do not listen to women who are in danger. So I had a whole bunch of stuff here about how horrible social media is, but we kind of know the drill. We kind of know it right now. You know, remember when Black comedian Leslie Jones was harassed off of Twitter? And she was harassed for being a Black woman, a funny Black woman. And then the other day, I saw a woman post on X about, she just defended her dissertation, her thesis, and she's a doctor now. And all she got was, oh, that's a useless PhD. They belittled her for simply being a woman. And a lot of her followers said, just scroll, delete, mute. And she replied and said, some of the men are threatening to rape me. Because she simply posted to celebrate a doctorate. So I've seen tons of, we've probably all seen it, the anonymous accounts that say that women deserve to be raped. Why are men so hateful? Does it make them feel better to threaten a woman they don't know? And in one day, this week, I saw several of the people that I know from Indigenous community posting on social media that their relatives have gone missing, their female relatives have gone missing. Indigenous women, girls, two-spirit, non-binary, transgender Indigenous community members are sexually harassed, assaulted, and receive death threats by men they're in relationships or just complete strangers. And this is happening in 2024. So what can we do to stop hurtful men from being like this? What can we do other than meet every year to read the names and remember those who have had their lives taken in such a violent manner? Not to downplay it, I think it's important. We do need to remember this. We do need to show the next generation what happened. So this is what I was going to talk about, my visit to a school a couple of years ago. And so I brought the paper doll project from Native Women's Association of Canada, and that's a project where people are invited to decorate the dolls and think about women who are missing, murdered. And some people don't like it because the dolls are faceless, with the implication that these women are faceless. They don't have names. They do. They are very much loved. And so I took that and changed it, and I said, I want the students to reflect and be creative in terms of, what do you think a woman would have done, like a fashion designer or a doctor or a nurse, or, you know, dress them up like that and let's talk about it. And there was this one student that had made it into a fashion doll. And I said, do you know one of those women? And I named the woman that she had died, and she was going to be a fashion designer. So I wanted them to think about the potential that was cut short. And in these dolls that represented women. And one young boy took a pair of scissors and took one of the dolls and looked at me and said, what would happen if I cut her head off? And I looked at him and I said, do you think that's kind? Do you think that's a kind thing to do? And then the teacher talked to the student, and a lot of the boys were kind of giggling. And so my heart sank, and the kid was probably 12, 13 years old. So I'm thinking now, he might be in his 20s, might be in university. So I wonder if he's changed. I wonder if he still thinks that way, and if he thinks that that's a funny action. You know, I was asked to MC the opening of a women's shelter this summer at an Indigenous agency, and I got to be the MC, so I was supposed to just be here's the speaker, welcome, cut the ribbon. But a lot of times I just take the mic and I say, it's all well and good that we have a shelter, it's needed, but why do we have the shelter? The women are fleeing violence, so how do we support men? How do we support them? How do we support them with their feelings, with their frustration when they don't get what they want, and I'm using air quotes, when they have that entitlement? And how do we support them to walk away from those situations where they are going to harm somebody, or even harm themselves? Men are hurting, men are struggling. So I believe in the education for grown men, youth, and boys, so they can understand what feminism really is, and not to fear it or be hateful towards women or feminists. And I really hope, my hope for today and for the future is for your continued safety. May you all be safe and respected on campus, in your personal lives, in your work lives, and in your personal lives. I said personal twice, I meant public. May you always be safe and feel safe, and if you don't feel safe, you have the voice to reach out and talk to somebody about it and get some help. get support that works for you. Because it's all well and good to have support, but if you're not into it, it's not going to help you. I'm going to sing a song, a sisterhood song that came to me a couple of years ago, maybe 12 years ago. And I would invite you to sing it with me, if you wish to. Thank you so much for being here, being together, and look at everybody and tell each other that you love them. I love you, I love you, I love you. Because I really think we forget that deep down inside. We all do love each other. So maybe that love will actually crack open someone who is feeling hurt and moves to violence and moves to treating others poorly. So I'm going to say thank you. Hi.
Thank you, Jenny Blackbird, for your beautiful and moving performance. Now I'd like to hand it over to Professor Sandy Welch, Vice Provost Students, to announce this year's recipients of the Award for Scholarly Achievement in the area of gender-based violence.
Thank you, Shauna, and I want to echo what Jenny said. Thank you all for being here on a Friday, a cold, snowy Friday. Thank you for being here and being with us to remember and to find ways that we can move forward. I also want to thank the organizers for this opportunity to have a discussion. Often we come to this event and I always leave recharged and reflective and having listened, but there was a powerfulness and a comfort in being able to talk and to share, because all of us have many reasons why we're here. This is a day that, as vice provost students, I don't often talk about why am I here. I'm here because of this day and what it means to me, the course of my life, the people in my life, the fact that I am a scholar of gender-based violence and sexual harassment, that I have, when I look back on my younger self, my sort of semi-adult self, my kind of older self, I guess now, the activism and the things that I care about relate very strongly to this day, to the reason that we're here, to trying to find ways, even when we feel that there's no way forward, trying to find ways that we can make it better for all of the experiences that many of you in this room have had, and that we certainly hope no one else will experience. But I also know it is this room that will hold the support, that will hold the care for those in the days, weeks, and I hope not, but possibly years ahead, to comfort those folks, but to also help us find ways that we can work to have the ways forward to bring about sustainable and realistic solutions for gender-based violence. And one of the ways that I'm here today to honor two exceptional students and to award the award for scholarly achievement in the area of gender-based violence that we first gave out at U of T in 2017. And it was to recognize the amazing work that our students do in this area, and what we can learn from our students who are making distinctive contributions in gender-based violence research and prevention. The award is jointly sponsored by the Office of the Vice President and Provost and the Office of the Vice President, People, Strategy, Equity, and Culture. And the award is open to students across all programs and years of studies. And over the years, we've had many different disciplines, from music to the sciences, to the social sciences, to education, who've been awarded. And it's about the research that our students are engaging in, and as well as their community or co-curricular involvement on issues of violence against women, girls, trans, and non-binary people. And I'm grateful that I believe both of our award winners are here today. And as I say some very nice things about you, I will invite you to come up to receive your award. First, I am pleased to announce this year's undergraduate award winner, Hex Lee. Hex is an international student. Hex is an international student who is pursuing a double major in sociology and women and gender studies, with a minor in sexual diversity studies at the Faculty of Arts and Science at Trinity College. Their academic work draws on and builds on their personal experiences around sexual violence and marginalization due to gender nonconformity, and it shows Hex in the work that they have done demonstrates a deep commitment to understanding and combating gender-based violence. Their academic pursuits focus on dismantling patriarchal and heterosexist systems, drawing connections between personal experiences and broader societal structures. Beyond academics, Hex actively supports the queer, Chinese, and migrant communities through education and service, fostering solidarity and resistance against oppression. One of Hex supporters for this nomination noted their passion for addressing gender-based violence, not just through words, but through action, and said that what set Hex apart was their dedication into community activism, which includes their volunteer work at many Toronto-based organizations that are vital to the queer community, such as 519, Let's Stop AIDS, and HQ Toronto. Hex, I applaud you for this work and your dedication to these profoundly important areas. And I'm supposed to invite you to come up, but you're already up here. So I will hand you your certificates. There you go. Thank you so much. Congratulations. I think they want us to pose for a photo.
you so much.
And I will note, without bias, I'm also very pleased that both of the award winners this year just happen to be connected to my home department, sociology, so I'll just do a little yay sociology. And now for our graduate recipient, I'd like to announce Roberta Silveira Paploma as this year's award winner. Roberta is a PhD candidate in the Department of Sociology and in the collaborative degree program in Women and Gender Studies. In her PhD dissertation, she analyzes the criminalization of feminicídio, or femicide in Brazil, and the feminist politics around it as the root of inquiry to answer three broader questions: how feminist discourses and practices impact political mobilizations and state practices on violence, how gendered, racialized, and economic structures shape these discourses and practices, and how feminists variously respond to the diffusion of their ideas. And in recognition of her academic work, she has also been awarded the Vanier Graduate Scholarship and an Ontario Graduate Scholarship. One of the faculty members who supported Roberta's nomination called her a brilliant thinker and writer with a particular genius and capacity for social theorization, and that her research is ambitious and exemplary and will profoundly influence further research in this area. So Roberta, I applaud you for this powerful work, and I would like to ask you to come and get your certificate. So congratulations to our award winners. And as both Hex and Roberta's work illustrates, there is an impressively broad range of work that is happening at our U of T that our students are doing, that our students are leading. And we saw this in the diversity of topics in our award applications. And often this work happens quietly and sometimes behind the scenes. We know that this can be difficult work, and the conversations surrounding this work can be challenging to share. And it's why we believe that it's so important to honor this work every year on December 6th. I also would like to thank this year's award selection committee members, Professor Tracy Lemos from the Women and Gender Studies Institute and cross-appointed to the Center for Diaspora and Transnational Studies, and Professor Beverly Esiu, who is based in Global Health in the Institute of Health Policy Management and Evaluation at the Dalla Lana School of Public Health. And I want to thank you for your careful consideration of our award applications, and on behalf of Professor Kelly, Hannah Moffett, and myself, thank you for helping us choose our award winners. And finally, I'll just note, part of our conversation at my table was about, when do we stop having this event? And I think I came away from, and our table came away from, that we don't stop. We continue to come together to reflect, to share in community, and to discuss how we can renew our commitment for the days and weeks and years ahead. So thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you for that reminder. I'd also like to extend my congratulations to Roberta and Hex. Thank you for leading the new generation working to end gender-based violence. So congrats again. I'm going to do a little applause again, if that's okay. I would like to now introduce Marisa Sterling, Assistant Dean of the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Professionalism at U of T Engineering, who will be helping us remember the 14 women killed at L'École Polytechnique de Montréal.
Thank you very much, David, and welcome everybody. It's an honor to lead you through the memorial portion of today's event. I am a white female with long brown hair. I'm wearing a beige blazer and a black dress, and I use the pronouns she and her. So our quartet will just be joining me here on stage. And we have also our name readers assembling on the side. So today we commemorate a tragedy. We do this to ensure that violence of the past is not forgotten, and in the hope that it will never happen again. Please take a deep breath with me as I tell you the story of December the 6th. In the afternoon of December the 6th, 1989, undergraduate students filled a fourth-year mechanical engineering classroom. A student presentation was being given. The neighboring cafeteria and classrooms of the engineering school were busy with people, including civil, chemical, metallurgical engineering students, along with staff and students from other programs. It was a Wednesday, and the goings-on I have described could similarly be a classroom or a building here at U of T or at any educational institution in Canada. But it was at École Polytechnique in the city of Montreal that the unthinkable happened. The scene I described would change within seconds, and the lives of families and friends and strangers would change forever. Join me in another deep breath. At about 5:10 p.m., a man entered École Polytechnique armed with a semi-automatic rifle, a hunting knife, and a suicide note. He entered that fourth-year mechanical engineering classroom and ordered the women and the men to stand at different sides of the classroom. Ushering the men out of the classroom, he then said to those who remained, "You're women, you're going to be engineers. You're all a bunch of feminists. I hate feminists." He opened fire on the women. 6 were killed, 3 were injured. He then moved through the corridors, the cafeteria, and another classroom, targeting and shooting the women for the next 20 minutes. Overall, 14 died. 12 engineering students, 1 nursing student, 1 employee of the university. And 14 other people were injured, including 4 men. Please take another breath with me. The women who were killed had families, achievements, ambitions, and dreams. Their lives were valuable and they had worth. They had a human right to exist and live their lives in safety. We will now honor the 14 women. I invite engineering students, graduate students, and staff to come to the stage one at a time to say the names of the women and tell their stories. This will be followed by a moment of silence and a short musical performance. Maria.
Geneviève Bergeron, age 21, second-year civil engineering student. She had just celebrated her 21st birthday. She had earned an engineering scholarship and also played clarinet and sang in the choir at the Montreal Symphony Orchestra. She was described as sweet, generous, and bubbling with life.
Hélène Colgan, age 23, fourth-year mechanical engineering student. She was graduating soon and had 3 job offers. She was known to always be juggling many projects with ambition and hope. Her best friend was Nathalie Croteau, who was also killed.
Nathalie Croteau, age 23, fourth-year mechanical engineering student. She was 3 months away from graduating. She was outgoing, enterprising, with a passion for learning. She was to take a vacation and celebrate New Year's Eve with Hélène Colgan in Cancun, Mexico.
Barbara Digno, age 22, fourth-year mechanical engineering. She was to graduate a few months later. She was someone not bound by conventional limits. At age 7, she asked why she could never become the Pope.
Anne-Marie Edward, age 21, first-year chemical engineering student. She was known for being clever, loved to take on any challenge she could. She loved all sports and capsized the family boat 56 times in a row when trying to sail. She was buried in her school's downhill ski team jacket.
Maud Havernick, age 29, second-year metallurgical engineering student. She had a bachelor's degree in environmental design and worked as an interior designer, creating habitats for community living before going back to school to fulfill her dream of being an engineer. She was also an artist whose mantra was, if you feel like going all the way, well, just do it.
Barbara Klugsnik Vidyevich, age 31, first-year nursing student. She was previously studying engineering, economics, and food logistics. She spoke 5 languages and loved to help people. She and her husband moved from Poland to Canada in 1987 because they thought Canada seemed safe.
Maurice Lagunier, age 25, budget clerk for the school's finance department. She had just been married 4 months prior, and she had 13 brothers and sisters, and was looking forward to starting a family as her own as a newlywed.
Maurice Leclerc, age 23, fourth year metallurgical engineering student. She was a top student at the school, and she had acted in plays in junior college. She liked British punk and new wave music and lived life unabashedly on her own terms. She was discovered dead by her father, who was a Montreal police lieutenant, first on the scene.
Anne-Marie Lemay, age 22, fourth-year mechanical engineering student. She chose engineering after a close friend lost the use of his legs as a teenager, and as she helped with him with his rehabilitation, she realized the importance of mechanical devices. She never dwelled on problems and was organized and studious.
Sonia Peltier, age 28, fourth-year mechanical engineering student. She was to graduate the next day with a transcript of straight A's. Her intelligence stood out as she won every competition and secured every scholarship. She also liked to cook and teach others how to make pasta from scratch.
Michelle Richard, age 21, second-year metallurgical engineering student. She was a strong student and was in the middle of presenting a paper with Maud Havernick when she was killed. Her boyfriend was with her in that class that night. She had a calming presence, lived every moment intensely, and abhorred violence.
Annie Sant-Arnaud, age 23, fourth-year mechanical engineering student. She was in that classroom that night listening to a presentation in her last class before graduation. She had a job interview with Alcan Aluminum the following day. She wrote poetry and wanted to make the world a better place.
Annie Turco, age 21, first-year metallurgical engineering student. Her intelligence won her a Women in Science bursary. She was committed to nature and finding ways to protect the environment. She was lighthearted and a big hit with children. She taught swimming lessons for free to children with disabilities. Let us now take a moment of silence to remember and honor these 14 women and all victims of violence who have lost their lives in Toronto, in Canada, and around the world, and those women that continue to experience violence today. Thank you for participating in the moment of silence. Thank you to the students and staff who came on stage to deliver this memorial. And thank you to the school orchestra's Iron Strings Quartet for providing such beautiful music to help all of us today as we meditate on the issues at hand and as we are stirred into action.
The events of December 6, 1989 have forever changed so many people's lives, and its remembrance continues to do so. For me, someone who was in 1989 a third-year U of T chemical engineering student, and someone who has since gone on to become the president of the Ontario engineering profession, my life has been forever changed with the reality that I may never be truly safe in the world or reach my dreams because of my gender. My naivety as a student back then has turned into a personal exploration of feminism, an uncommon topic of discussion amongst engineers. I recently read the memoirs of Monique Fries, a notable biomedical engineer and researcher who herself had not considered feminism prior to the December 6 violence, but who wrote that she began to call herself a feminist after 1989. Dr. Fries was the first researcher to hold Canada's National Science and Engineering Research Council, or NSERC, Women in Engineering Chair. The position provided notable STEM researchers with the time and resources to increase the participation and retention of women in science and engineering and to provide role models for women considering careers in these fields. Today, the program has 5 chairholders, has created the Ontario Network of Women in Engineering, also known as ONWE, has led research-based initiatives to remove barriers for young women and non-binary youth to pursue engineering careers, and delivers engagement programs like Go Eng Girl, Go Code Girl, and Girl Guides Badge Days.
What would change after December 6 is the growing strength of community between women and women in engineering, and this continues today. In 1989, the Women in Science and Engineering organization, also called WISE, was incorporated with chapters around the world, including one here at U of T. This year, I am co-president of WISE U of T and help to run mentorship programs for women and by women, which research shows has the most impact on students as they transition into higher education studies. We engage with young women in high schools as outreach ambassadors, organize a national conference each year for over 400 women students across Canada to find community within engineering, and will be hosting an event on International Women's Day here in the Great Hall to empower those in the community.
What would change after December the 6th is the open acknowledgement that engineering has been an unsafe profession for women for years. Starting in the 1990s, the engineering profession began to take complaints by women in engineering seriously. In 1994, a groundbreaking national survey of workplace conditions for engineers was undertaken and identified challenges women engineers were facing. And in 2000, changes were made to the Professional Engineers Act, the Ontario law that governs engineering practice, to include harassment and sexual harassment as part of the definition of professional misconduct. Notable U of T engineering alumni were a driving force behind these changes, including Helen Wyszynski, who is a current member of the University's College of Electors.
What would change after December 6th is a swelling of actions to counter violence against women, women of color, Indigenous women, trans women, and so many other identities that face gender-based violence. Here at U of T Engineering, a confidential disclosure framework was initiated in 2021 under Marissa's office in collaboration with a group of change makers known as the Engineering EDI Action Group. The disclosure framework aims to open up conversations about these actions out of the shadows, so its victims are not suffering in silence. As the framework is not a complaints process, it has a lower emotional effort to access and removes the fears of harmful retaliation that many often feel and that prevents students from coming forward. The confidential process provides safe places for students to discuss what they are experiencing and feeling, learn about their human rights and rights under the Student Code of Conduct, find out about resources, and receive help accessing supports to resolutions and to their personal safety and wellness. Over the last 4 years, the majority of students who have used the disclosure framework identify as women and 2SL LGBTQ+ students.
What would change after December 6th is that annual remembrances like today's will motivate and affect the creation of laws, policies, and programs for positive change. The 30 by 30 campaign is one such example. It was started 14 years ago in Alberta and then adopted nationally to bring together engineering employers, higher education, and regulators to support women in their careers. And it has been noted that many women have chosen to leave engineering because of its unwelcoming culture. As a result, today, 20% of all newly licensed engineers in Canada are women, and the goal is to achieve 30% by 2030. Thank you to each of you for joining the memorial, whether in person, online, or privately today. What we have seen since 1989 is a system-wide approach to eradicate gender-based violence and all forms of oppression. And until violence against women has been eradicated, we will come together each year and remember these 14 women and the need for further actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Marissa, for leading us through that difficult moment, and Wanda for reminding us what positive changes have happened.
It's been 35 years since the murder of 14 women at L'École Polytechnique. As we feel their loss and remember their lives, we recognize that the misogyny and hatred that led to their murders still exists today. We mourn the more than 1,600 Indigenous women and girls who are missing or have been murdered across decades. We mourn the 22 people killed in Portapique and Wentworth Valley, Nova Scotia, 4 years ago. We mourn and seek justice for Rebecca Contois, Morgan Harris, Mercedes Moran, and Meshkode Bijiki, who were murdered in the Winnipeg area. In Canada, in the past year, more than 160 women have died from femicide, according to the Canadian Femicide Observatory for Justice and Action. In 2023, that number was 187. We know that women and gender diverse people who are Black, Indigenous, racialized, living in poverty, or living with disabilities are at greater risk. In Canada, the United States, and elsewhere around the world, women, girls, and 2S LGBTQ+ people continue to face unacceptable discrimination that threatens their lives. In 2023, Statistics Canada reported that in that year, hate crimes targeting sexual orientation increased 69% from the previous year. The National Day of Remembrance and Action on Violence Against Women is about reflecting on this solemn truth, remembering those who have experienced gender-based violence, and reaffirming our commitment to action.
I really enjoyed our conversations today and learning about the resources we have to become more informed, as well as the personal reasons our table decided to participate today. As I mentioned earlier, I'm the president of the Graduate Student Club at the University of Toronto, and I'll definitely be taking these resources and continuing these discussions with our group. Specifically, I'm interested on how to show up as allies. So how can I engage more men to witness the beautiful community we created with the engineering women? Thank you to everyone involved in today's event and the organizing committee for making it happen.
Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today, for joining us in nourishment with food, for joining us in dialogue and discussion, and for really holding this space as a place of reflection, a place where grief is welcome and held, and also a place where we can care for each other and think about the actions that we are going to take with us as we move forward through this month and as we move forward through the years. All participants are now invited to join us for the laying down of roses. Please make your way towards the building exit after I finish this little instruction guide. Not in this second. So please make your way towards the building's exit. Don't forget your coat. Also, this is my disclaimer warning that the roses have thorns. Reflect on that in a way that feels okay for you, but you are responsible for your fingers. Event volunteers are stationed at the exit with white roses and memorial brochures. If you're joining us for this portion of the memorial, you're welcome to take a rose and make your way to the Ziebing Pavilion and then to 35 St. George Street for the Engineering Student-Built Memorial, which is in front of the Galbraith Building. Volunteers from the center and from engineering will be available to help guide you along your way. This part of our memorial is intended to be done on your own time, so please know that there is no rush. The presentation part of our event will end here, and you're welcome to lay down your rose in silent reflection or join the colleagues at your table for a brief walk if that's what feels good to you. If you're interested in spending more time in reflection today or in the days to come, we're also pleased to have a self-guided memorial walk available as a new resource for all participants. Please scan the QR code on the screen now to access this tool, and there's also QR codes on your table as well, which you can use to navigate various points of interest on campus that are related to gender-based violence prevention and reflection. Thank you again for your participation today. The project of ending gender-based violence is made possible by engaged, caring communities, and today you have all shown your commitment to that work. We appreciate you, and we wish you a restful holiday break to come. Thank you.